See Godzilla, King of the Monsters, a movie featuring the terrifying monster Godzilla. See a movie that has and was originally made by the Japanese, but see the American version that is re-edited and watered down to make way for Raymond Burr to sort of ham it up from time to time. See Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Just my kind of spoof on it, so... Hi, welcome to End Credit Reviews, on episode of After the Credits on End Credit Reviews. This is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson Studios.
And we do apologize if the audio is kind of iffy in that. It's been a long time since we both recorded professionally with, the audio just sitting down here. And of course, this is our review on Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Which is kind of odd if you think about it, because... that was the American edit title of the original Godzilla movie, Gojira, but this movie is kind of a remake of Ghidorah, the three-headed monster from the 60s, because of the same kind of monster roster, in a way. But anyway, we have been waiting for this movie for a long time. 5 years in that. And we both did like the 2014 Godzilla remake, but we both agreed that Godzilla was barely in it, and the human characters were a little bit boring, minus Bryan Cranston's character, who got killed off way too soon.
Yep, exactly. Couldn't have been said any better.
Yeah, I mean, some have said that 1998 remake was sort of better because it actually had Godzilla had more screen time, and the human characters were a bit better developed, or at least memorable.
I wouldn't go that far. Maybe in... specifically reference to Godzilla's screen time, but I don't know. I feel like the character interactions, even for how bad they were in the 2014, weren't quite. It basically depends if you like kind of where we're going with 2000s-ish writing versus 90s into 2000 writing, and I personally prefer later 2000s writing because it's not as corny and campy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was more about like being a fun 90s movie, but they both did have similar opening credit sequences, and they both had like baby monsters, I guess, which is kind of weird if you think about it. But anyway, so the Godzilla movie from 2014 was directed by Gareth Edwards, and the thing was that he was originally supposed to direct the second one, and was going to get a 2016 release. However, he then was like, I'm going to direct that Star Wars spin-off movie, Rogue One. The one that actually made money. And then he was supposed to direct the new Godzilla movie, and that was going to come out in 2018. But then he was like, I don't really want to direct another Godzilla movie. So, he basically scumbagged out.
Yeah.
He did. Yeah, I'm not trying to say too many negative things about him, but come on. You're the reason why we waited 5 years for this movie.
Kind of reminds me of, in an ideal world, what would have happened with this last season of Game of Thrones. And I don't know if you heard that, but basically the writers for the show who have been doing it got a fat check from Disney and are like, Hey, if you can wrap up the Game of Thrones series very quickly, you can come write for us and we'll give you lots of damn money. So they were saying, even HBO was like, hey, you can definitely do another season, we'll pitch in for 8 to 10 episodes. And they're like, no thanks, we'll do it in 6. Great.
Yeah, I don't really watch Game of Thrones, so I'm not part of the movement that wants the complete final season redone or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not going to go that far with it, but it's definitely valid to show, in comparison to this, that kind of just sell out for money.
Yeah, but anyway, back on track to Godzilla. Now, the interesting thing is that about Steven and I relate to Gareth Edwards is that back in our community college day, where we were in this video editing class together, our teacher apparently was once the pupil of Gareth Edwards, who I guess taught a class that he knew.
Yep, you were reminding me of that. I had honestly forgotten that, but he was talented at what he did, so he must have taught him a fair bit.
Yeah, oh, that was just my finger hitting the table. If anyone's wondering that, but and I do think for the better, it's good that he's not directing this movie.
Agreed.
So the new director this time is Michael Dougherty. Now this guy does have one thing that Gareth Edwards didn't have when he directed his Godzilla movie, and that was experience, because Michael Dougherty had a lot of experience in writing, where he wrote a lot of comic book movies in the 2000s, and he wrote this movie called Trick or Treat, which became kind of a cult classic, and then he directed Krampus, which was another holiday-themed horror movie that Steven and I saw with Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the gingerbread men exploded, and I was like, directed by Michael Bay.
Pretty much, though, yeah.
So now he's directing this movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters, so I feel like at least he had a couple of movies under his belt and not just one micro-budget movie.
True.
And that sort of deal. But anyways, so let's get into the movie itself. Godzilla King of the Monsters. So roughly 5 years after the first Godzilla movie, the organization of Monarch is under question of like, well, should we really have these monsters around? Are they really worth keeping around? Do you think we should control them or just destroy them?
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, there's also drama with a family who was affected by the actions of Godzilla and the fight that happened in the previous movie. We have that of Dr. Emma Russell, who's played by Vera Farmiga. I think that's how you pronounce her name?
Yeah.
Anyway, her and her daughter, named Madison Russell, played by Millie Bobby Brown, best known as Eleven on Stranger Things,
Yep.
they're working together as, mother and daughter, and she creates a device that apparently could possibly control the monsters in a certain way. However, there is a rogue organization that is headed by Jonah Allen, who's played by Charles Dance. And for those of you who don't remember, this was the same character that Tom Hiddleston played in Kong Skull Island. So that's kind of that cinematic universe thing that it has from Kong Skull Island that's coming into this one.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's up to the people at Monarch to try to stop this plan from happening, from the monsters to be unleashed on the Earth to wipe out most of humanity, and we take it from there. So, what did you think of Godzilla King of the Monsters, Steven?
Overall, nothing but praise. I was so curious how this was going to be handled, because Tyler was bringing up the concerns that, well, he hadn't done the director hadn't done something this big yet, and so this could be an absolute disaster potentially. Gareth Edwards was experienced, and
well, just with one movie.
Well, sure, but I mean, even in just filmmaking in general, from what we understood from our teacher, he's been around the industry for a while. So if he couldn't do it, I guess there was that hint of doubt from both of us to a certain extent with his experience in Krampus. But man, if we weren't wrong, because he really proved his mark here. And while of course I'm not going to say it was a perfect movie, it was much, much closer to what we have always wanted and deserved in a Godzilla movie. Godzilla being the main focus. I will say some of the common criticisms by out-of-touch hacks that are, trying to steamroll this online is that, there wasn't enough of the humans. There was plenty of humans. The difference was it was well balanced.
Yeah.
They seem to prefer monsters as glorified furniture. Just something that appears in the background every once in a while, and that has never been the point for Godzilla.
Or giant monster movies in general.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing is that the human characters are better written and better developed. The only good human character we had in the previous one was Bryan Cranston's character, and they killed him off in the first half, and then we're just stuck with boring old Soldier Boy.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was waiting to say that.
Well put. Yeah. No, and I mean, it upped the stakes from the prior film by at least threefold, arguably probably more. And I think it looked visually better. The first one, while it did have a couple good scenes in it, like the airport scene and stuff like that,
Yeah.
it was all kind of dark and gray and black overall for the color palette.
Yeah, like wet concrete, which
It-
is kind of like what some people would criticize the Marvel Cinematic Universe in their
Yeah.
look, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the angry video game nerd said that it looked kind of too ugly looking. This movie is so colorful. It's not afraid to get very blue and red and yellow, all these sort of colors. It's really a colorful movie. And I'm just happy that we're starting to get out of the trend of like, let's just copy Nolan's look.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is a valid critique, and I definitely think that in that regard, this was just a beautiful movie. I mean, we saw a couple of the shots in the trailers already, to kind of see roughly what we're going to be looking at, but expect a lot of that going in, because there are some fantastic shots in this.
Yeah, I mean, we see Rodan on this mountain here, like from a distance is great. We also see King Ghidorah on top of this, mountain, and we see like this lightning thing. He's like, we see how far and big he is, and we see like this cross in a way to kind of like how the earth is trying to, repel against this, demonic giant monster.
And
When
even
I
the
saw-
three heads almost being an antichrist imagery.
Yeah, like an unholy trinity in a way.
Mhm.
But also, when I saw that imagery, I just instantly reminded me of the Night on Bald Mountain sequence from Fantasia, when the giant, demon monster Chernobog is doing his thing, and the other, like, demons pop up in that.
That's a fair point.
It definitely visually reminded me of that, which was great. And there's other great shots, too, of other monsters just fighting. And I remember some reviews were saying there's plenty of shots in this movie that could easily be your computer desktop background.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just so much beauty in what they did with it, which was great. There's so many moments you could frame that.
And it really,
right there.
The other thing is, it really didn't drag a lot. Like, I thought that the first Godzilla kind of did drag. There was a lot of kind of just military talking, blah, blah, blah. And while that still was the case in this one, that the military was, of course, involved, there was a lot more going on a lot faster.
Yeah, there was a lot more people, actually, more development and more people, like, talking to each other.
Right.
And trying to work together as a team. And again, it does kind of... We're calling out the lies of the critics who are saying, none of human characters. What do you mean? There are plenty of time with the human characters.
It's such garbage.
They're far better developed than the first one. That's what I really liked about this one, aside from the giant monster stuff, because you have to have, some kind of human development of some way to kind of add to that drama.
Yeah.
Because the original Godzilla movies, like the best ones, did have some good human drama in there.
Sure.
And this one definitely brought it. We have our character, Vera Farmiga's character.
Mm-hmm.
She does have an interesting reason for what she is doing. And at first I was worried that, we're going to do another surprise villain cliche, which Disney has been doing way too much of.
Sure.
But this happens in the first half of the movie, and you can understand why she does it. And she doesn't sound like a completely different character when it happens. So that's why it works, because it happens early on in the movie. And also the trailers, too, kind of give it away.
Yeah.
And that sort of deal. But yeah, anyway, so let's talk about the monsters. We'll get back to the humans later.
Sure.
But anyway, so we have all the giant monsters. So we love the look of Rodan in this movie.
Pterodactyl-esque.
Yeah, I mean, the part where he eats one of the pilots ejecting. I don't know if you've seen this movie called The Giant Claw from the 50s.
I have seen at least clips from it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most laughably bad-looking giant monster designs ever.
Yeah.
There's a part where one guy flies out of a plane, or parachutes out of the plane, and the giant claw, eats him. And I thought to myself, yeah, that might have been a nod to that. That's not a Godzilla movie, but a giant monster movie in general.
Sure.
And also we had Mothra in this one too, which was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
However, I remember rewatching the first one recently, and there was an Easter egg to Mothra in they like this very like bugs they're being contained, and one of them was labeled Mothra on it. So that was more like an Easter egg and not really a foreshadowing, like, oh, this is where Mothra came from. But I did like how they did add in the whole like twin fairy thing eventually, which I was kind of wondering, oh, they're not doing that? Oh, they are doing that. Okay, not really much of a spoiler in that if you're a fan of the Godzilla stuff and that.
I was gonna say you may want to explain what the twin thing means because I didn't know at first.
Well, the twins in those movies were basically kind of the guardians, not just the guardians, but the people who would tend to channel Mothra, like her energy, and try to communicate with her, and that. Usually Mothra is a her. I think sometimes Mothra is a he, which is weird. There's been many Mothras in just the Godzilla series alone. But anyway, so let's talk about that big bad giant monster known as Ghidorah.
Yes.
When I heard there was a multiple-headed monster in this movie, I thought The View was gonna be in this.
Yeah, no, I can see where you'd confuse that.
Yep, I mean, I'd rather see Godzilla stomp on them than King Ghidorah. I remember, I don't know if I told you this, but years ago when I made this video for the top 10, Godzilla movie moments or something like that, I said King Ghidorah's name wrong, I pronounced it wrong, and then half the comments like, oh, you pronounced it wrong, it's King Ghidorah. I said King Ghidorah, which is weird because in the American dub versions of some of the older movies, it is King Ghidorah, they say, which is weird. Sometimes it's King Ghidorah and sometimes it's King Ghidorah, which is weird. But anyway, I do like how they first call it Monster Zero, because that's a reference to the movie Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, which was the second time Godzilla fought that monster. And I gotta say, the design is not only fantastic like the other monsters, but the effects are great too.
They are.
Yeah, they're just like, I just love the detail put into it. And I was telling you, Steven, when it was like a quiet moment, like, the designs are awesome on this thing. It's
they
like,
sure are.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
amazing.
yeah.
Textures and everything.
Yeah, there's other giant monsters in the movie. I mean, there's a few of them that were from the other Godzilla movies, and there's one, well, mild spoiler, that's from the first one, which I found kind of odd.
I didn't. Tyler was saying that, okay, well, we said spoiler warning, so 3, 2, 1. It's a Muto. And basically, I was not surprised because they indicated towards the beginning of that one, I remember pretty clearly, that in addition to the one that awoke and the additional one that woke to mate, that there was a third that just wasn't accounted for. And there was one additional one, so that to me was the clearest case of, yeah, that's the Muto. But okay. It's possible I could be misremembering, but that to me was not a surprise at all.
Okay. I mean, I found it weird. One of them was like a giant woolly mammoth-looking one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather wish that was Anguirus instead. I know there was a giant spider. I forget the name from the first series, but it's definitely a nod from the first series. In that they said there were like 17 monsters in this one, but we
definitely didn't see 17.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should have brought that number down a lot. Maybe in the next one we'll actually see like a big monster brawl or something like that that happens. But also, there's a part where one of the characters is like silent before King Ghidorah lands, and you briefly hear a sound of, which is the sound from the first series when King Ghidorah is like flying. In that, which I got that reference, so that was great. There's a ton of great references. Godzilla has his roar kind of changes from his one that's just from the series. I mean, I think I even heard briefly at one point the 1998 Godzilla roar.
Yeah.
At one point, and other parts in the series too, which I did like. And also, there's part at the end credits, there's a nice, like, in the memory of the original actor who played Godzilla.
In the rubber suit.
Yeah, in the first series.
Yep.
Which I'm like, oh, people clapped too during that. And people did clap at the end of this movie, which was great. In fact, some people were singing along to the, Godzilla song, not the Blue Oyster Cult cult version, but I guess a new cover version of it.
Right. Yep.
But that was, I'm like, wow, yeah, people really like this movie a lot.
Speaking of which, bringing up the sound, being a sound person myself, I must say that the scoring for this was, I would say, overall better than the first film as well. There were a couple tracks that were good and suspenseful, but this one just had good themes and motifs for the monsters in general, and it really kind of was seamless and helped provide a lot of the glory to their presence in addition to their fantastic visual design, which is so important.
Yeah, I mean, with the sound itself, the soundtrack, yeah, the first one, in retrospect, re-listening to it again, I'm like, yeah, sounds a little bit too low-key, I would say, but this one definitely was more memorable. Yeah, it did have the recycled kind of Godzilla theme from the Japanese ones, but I loved it. It was kind of like a different take on it. Like, yeah, this is the Godzilla theme, but this is kind of like our version. But thank God they had the decency not to make it a dubstep version.
Thank God, yeah.
Or to have some 2-bit rapper come in and just like, oh yeah, you know, Godzilla, you know, like...
Yeah, that would have been the worst. We were seeing some preview with, like, Common in some movie right before and just thinking, oh gosh, it'd be the worst if someone like that was involved in this.
Oh yeah, definitely. And but I did see that, you know, commercial ad on the internet where it showed Ice Cube's son, Oshika Jackson Jr., who's in the movie, in that car, like, you know, like that LL Cool J song playing. Yeah, he's the third actor from the Straight Outta Compton movie to be in this cinematic universe, because a couple of the other actors from that movie were in Kong Skull Island.
It's true.
Which I find kind of interesting. But back to the human cast, I did like seeing Ken Watanabe as Dr. Sarazawa, which might have been a reference to the first series, I think. And he's been in some great movies that I like a lot, such as The Last Samurai and Inception.
Yep.
We also have Sally Hawkins in the movie from the first one, and no, not Grinding Nemo.
Grinding Nemo.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part where Charles Dance's character barges in, and it's like, well, that dark universe didn't really go anywhere, so I'm gonna barge right into this cinematic universe here.
Yeah, no, I also wanted to make a lot of Game of Thrones jokes with him, but Tyler doesn't watch Game of Thrones, so, but
yeah.
Just this very stern grandfather presence in the room. Looking down on all you peasants.
I will say one character, I remember seeing the casting early on, and I kind of got a chuckle out of it, was Kyle Chandler as the ex-husband of Dr. Emma Russell, as well as the father of Madison Russell. And I kind of got a chuckle out because this actor was in the 2005 remake of King Kong, and he's also apparently going to be in the next movie, which is Godzilla vs. Kong. So he went from a King Kong movie to a Godzilla movie, and now they're both coming together.
It's full circle, boys.
Man, his career is so lucky. I would love to be in just one of those movies.
Amen.
And I think this might be Millie Bobby Brown's first movie role, too.
I think that may be right. I could be wrong, or there may be some smaller budget one that -7 people have heard about. But, yeah, no, this was definitely her biggest role outside of, including probably Stranger Things at this point.
Yeah.
But Stranger Things, was the thing that launched her, of course. So.
Yeah, I mean, also, I did like her character in the movie. I mean, I know she didn't have, like, a ton of screen time. She wasn't necessarily the main character. But still, she's miles better than Aaron Taylor Johnson's character.
Seriously, no question. Easily 3 times as good of an actor. Easily.
I'm not trying to beat down on him. It's just the way his character was written was kind of just bland.
Lame.
I mean, yeah. So in 2014, there's too much humans and not enough Godzilla. This one, there's too much Godzilla, not enough humans. Wrong.
Exactly.
There were plenty of times with the monsters and the humans. It was actually balanced out. Okay, Godzilla shows up in the movie, and it's a great, amount of time he's on screen. He fights King Ghidorah, mild spoiler thing, 3 times, so there's plenty of times where these two fight.
There is, and they continue. I mean, to expand not only on, our understanding of the monsters that exist, but they kind of showed and hinted at, other civilizations and stuff like ancient ones, that are connected to Godzilla and Kong and other things that I thought was good world building. I was gonna say subtle, wasn't very subtle. But at the same time, it wasn't super shoved down your throat. It was kind of just, we're there.
Yeah, it wasn't like the Mummy remake with Tom Cruise, where it's like, oh, let's just stop the movie right here to dump a bunch of exposition on what's supposed to be the first movie in a cinematic universe.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, I would say that we should get into spoiler territory quickly.
Sure.
To try to wrap stuff up, but how about when Godzilla was like in meltdown mode, which was like a reference to the second series? I mean, I think it was mildly spoiled in one of the TV spots or something like that.
Mildly, yeah.
But I thought that was pretty cool. And again, the imagery is so phenomenal in this movie for what they did. And the characters are better developed. Like, I'd rather see a movie like this one where the human characters are somewhat well developed and more evened out compared to the first one where everyone seems to be bland except for maybe a couple of them, and then one of them gets killed off in the first half.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, sorry, we were talking about the,
Spoilers?
Yeah, but Ghidorah and Godzilla especially were spectacular in this. Obviously, we've mentioned, I would say, the big four that appeared in this. But overall, just leaps and bounds better in pretty much every way than the first one. And again, not trying to beat up on Gareth Edwards, but they really expanded positively and made this a world instead of just, humans are watching some stuff happen. Ooh, like we haven't seen that before.
Yeah, the most of the fight we see in the first one was just on the news.
Mm-hmm. And I will say that we're, still in spoiler territory here, so the actual fights between Mothra and Rodan was cool. Kind of as backup to Godzilla and King Ghidorah. And I really liked how they kind of showed in the second fight. Like, in the first fight, it looked like King Ghidorah just was going to wallop Godzilla. But then he retreated, and then Ghidorah got close to the water, and Godzilla tore one of his heads off, and it's like, okay, so it's not so, just going to be a one-sided thing here. It's they got to play into each other's elements. And then in the third, the humans kind of weren't completely useless and helped stall for time and make it so that Godzilla was ultimately able to win. And in addition to that, just being visually striking, it was so satisfying as a Godzilla fan not to see him either be nerfed or the creature he's opposing be nerfed, because it's so easy for these giant monster movies or movies with this sort of action in general to one just steamrolls the other and you don't feel any consequence.
Yeah, I mean, I hate those kind of fights where one guy seems to be completely dominated, then becomes a 180 right in the middle.
Yeah.
And that sort of deal. Like, I do like it better where it's more evened out in a way.
Agreed.
But yeah, I thought it was kind of odd that, like, oh, Rodan's alive at the end?
Yeah, that was a little peculiar, I agree.
But yeah, I do like how they're showing the whole king status, where it's like, okay, the monsters respect this guy because he's the alpha, and he's kind of like the king. And again, I love the imagery with Godzilla roaring, like, yeah, I'm the king again, and all the monsters are, like, bowing down to him.
Yeah, like, on the corpse of, we're in spoiler territory, so, on the corpse of Ghidorah, in this just mountain of
it's
rubble,
King Ghidorah,
surrounded by bowing monsters. Ooh, was that was, very good, thoroughly good.
Yeah. But anyway, I did like how they did make some nods to Kong,
Mm-hmm.
and they definitely did hint at like, oh, it's gonna happen in the next movie.
Yes, they
So
did.
yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering what they're gonna do with that one of Godzilla versus Kong.
And they hinted at, Ghidorah, despite, what happened at the end. He very well is probably going to return in some capacity.
Maybe as Mecha King Ghidorah, or maybe they can morph into Destroya,
Right.
which I did hear is a rumor that could be the monster that Godzilla and Kong team up to fight
That'd make
in
sense.
the third act. But also, I felt like was kind of a mild problem I had with the movie. Aside from some moments slowing down here from there, we see some kind of like unnecessary sacrifices cliches that happen at certain points. Is that the oxygen destroyer kind of comes out of nowhere?
Yeah, no, I mean, part of me understands, because I think, I don't know if Tyler and I would agree on this, but I think one of the themes that was going on in this is so much of what Godzilla originally was supposed to represent was the danger of atomic weapons, metaphorically. And so, kind of...
And fear.
Yeah, and fear, just in general. But I know that, that was the intent of the original, so I could see with this that they were kind of... Tyler may have cringed a little bit at some of their bringing in the environmental factor and the eco-terrorism.
Well, it's pretty cliched by this point. Like, it's kind of come a dime a dozen now in this decade.
But with, the climate change topic that is prevalent right now, I think it's a pretty interesting time to be bringing it in to play, and also I thought specifically that oxygen weapon was to kind of indicate, in addition to the villain just being completely out of her mind despite somewhat good reasons, but at the same time not well thought out, because it's, kind of obligated to be a villain.
And probably being manipulated by Discount Ra's al Ghul.
Right. But in any case, I think that it was to indicate, our own, imperial or, military good intentions to destroy can often end up backfiring. And to me, that was a clear representation of that in this case. It was out of the blue. I will definitely give you that it was kind of just all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to, it was kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It just kind of came out of nowhere, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a big reason why a lot of critics are not liking the movies, because they made one of the villains in the movie, using, like, global warming or whatever is a reason why she wants to wipe out like half the human population and that sort of thing. They're making that as a antagonist, like a villain,
right,
in a way. So I think that's why they're kind of review bombing.
I could see that being part of it, yeah, but
yeah, I think that's kind of the real reason why. I mean, I'm kind of tempted to make like a video essay on maybe the symbolism of the movie, and again, the real reason why critics dislike it, in a way.
I would definitely disagree with that being the overall reason. I think the overall reason is just they're stuck up and they're like, oh, it's just a giant monster movie. And it's like, dude, why do you even go to this? Like, we were just talking about how, are the people that are like, no, I was expecting with the title Godzilla that it was going to make me question philosophical beliefs. Get out of here. Like,
yeah, if you want to see that garbage, just watch that stupid Godzilla movie, the third one that's animated on Netflix.
Yeah.
The Planet Eater, or whatever it was called. It was bad. It was really stupid.
Yeah. No, but like, just in general, I think that, well, there definitely was some sort of political message that these critics, I think, we've seen with the horror genre, the action genre, and the monster genre, they're just like, whatever, can we get back to dramas about people who are victims, please? And I think that was definitely a case here, but...
Yeah, I mean, with the movie itself, there was some stuff where I'm like, well, yeah, if you watch The Predator and, there's so many other movies just in this decade alone where it's like, let me guess, the villain's gonna bring up, this checklist of reasons why they're gonna do it. It just seems pretty cliched now. I just feel like, I know how villains kind of change from decade to decade. They're trying to show like, oh yeah, we kind of have good intentions, our idea of it, but that's just a front for just genocide.
Right. Misunderstood, except not. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and I even said one time, hey, Ozymandias, settle down.
Pretty much.
Well, yeah, and yeah, that long predates that. But yeah, again, Godzilla was representing of like balance and restoring order.
Absolutely.
I do like how they do acknowledge that, yeah, King Ghidorah is an alien. He is not part of this world, so that's why he wasn't affected by said oxygen destroyer, which is, of course, a nod to the original Godzilla movie. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one a lot. Really excellent stuff. I wasn't like iffy about the oxygen destroyer because of what you were getting at with what the metaphorical thing was for it. I just felt like, what? This is random.
Oh yeah, to be clear, I wasn't saying that particular...
We're briefly disconnected.
Is it okay?
We'll find out. Well, it sounds a little bit odd, in a way. Well, we'll just keep going.
Yeah.
In that.
But yeah, I didn't think it was particularly for that reason. I was just saying that culmination of factors I thought I saw in, some underlying metaphorical sense that being done. And you may not agree with that, but I saw it as kind of that overarching theme under the movie, if you will, and that you might not agree with that, but
yeah.
It was poorly executed. That was my point.
Yeah, there's some stuff I could see, what I think the message of this movie might have been, in a way, and talking about other stuff I've probably brought up, either on these videos or not. But anyway, I think we should wrap it up now, so what would you give Godzilla King of the Monsters, Steven?
I really liked this movie. I would actually probably say it's bordering on love, because it did so much right. We've given all the praises we can, basically, over this thing, so I'll just cut to the chase. Basically, it's just short of an A to me, so I'm gonna... If I had to give this a letter grade, it would be B++, like an 88 or an 89%, just because, it wasn't completely perfect. It's so close to an A overall, and on a second viewing, I may even give it an A. It's just, there was a little bit of drag in a couple of places, not, a whole act or something necessarily, so that's a major positive. And it improved as a sequel all of the elements of the first, which is what we desire out of a sequel. And it'll be hard for Godzilla vs. King Kong to top in a lot of ways, I think, but I am optimistic after seeing this that we're off to good places. So I would definitely say, first of all, see this movie, because it's fantastic, and it is bordering on an A, probably 88 to 89%.
Yeah, this movie, for me, I was looking forward to this movie a lot, and this movie was the one that I've been looking forward to seeing this year.
Same.
And I actually like this more than Endgame, because a big issue I had with Endgame, aside from it being a bit too lengthy, was that whole, really stupid, mildly cringy moment where it's like, okay, girls, let's all get together now.
Yikes, that was bad. I agree.
Yeah, that was pretty distracting.
It was.
But with this one, there was no identity politics being shoved down people's throats. When it did have some messages in that, it definitely felt a lot more subtle, even though I did bring up the whole thing of okay, villain trying to justify plan, here is the checklist here.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And also the oxygen destroyer thing was wait, what?
Mm-hmm. Out of left field.
Yeah, it was like random in a way. I will say this movie is very excellent. I am legitimately considering seeing this movie a second time,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, maybe probably a matinee. But the thing is, yeah, I do agree strongly with people that you have to see this on the big screen to get the best enjoyment out of it. There's tons of giant monster action, tons of great fun. Godzilla has plenty more screen time, and the human characters are better developed and written. Just don't listen to Rotten Tomatoes, okay?
They're garbage.
The biggest fake news site of all time,
Amen.
okay? Yeah, from the site that labels The Amazing Spider-Man as fresh, but labels that awesome remake of The Mummy from the 90s as rotten.
Yeah, garbage.
Yeah, again, human characters, well developed, well written. I could even tell by the first trailer that it was going to be better than the first movie.
Yep.
And it's safe to say it's one of those rare sequels that's better than the first movie. Indisputably that. And I did feel for these characters, even though Dr. Emma Russell was starting to do these things, you can kind of feel that, well, she was having second thoughts at one point. And I can understand the motives of these different characters. And we got plenty of giant monster action, and there's so many times where not only the fights were good, but there's so many beautiful looking shots in this movie, and it wasn't afraid to be colorful too, which I loved.
Absolutely.
It's just gorgeous looking at times, and it's a fun movie. And I highly recommend it. So I know it sounds a little bit bold for me saying this, but as for Godzilla King of the Monsters, I would give it 3.5 stars out of 4.
I can't disagree with that. It did so much right that it really deserves recognition for it. So
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much gave the original Godzilla from the 50s that same rating.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, I kind of hinted that I was thinking about giving it 3 to 3.5 stars out of 4 for the 2014 one.
Mhm.
And I definitely was very much in this moment of like, oh, my first Godzilla movie I saw in theaters. But of course, I've sobered up from the hype years later, watching it a second time recently. I'm like,
sure.
yeah, it's more noticeably boring and slow. And the problems, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't really hold up well, but this one is definitely an improvement, I gotta say.
Amen.
But yeah, we gotta talk about, not really a spoiler here, but how about that Three Stooges joke that they had?
That was hilarious. Yeah, you posted a meme the other day on your page with the heads of Mo, Larry, and Curly on Ghidorah, and then freaking they mentioned, so Mo, Larry, and Curly here. We were floored. We were done. That was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like when Avengers Infinity War was coming out, and I made this meme of, like, Grimace from McDonald's, and then it showed Thanos, like, be careful who you called fat back in middle school. And then there's a part where Star-Lord calls, you know, Thanos Grimace.
That was great.
Maybe I have some secret connections in Hollywood, folks.
Stay woke, yeah.
And both of these movies I gave 3.5 stars out of 4.
Conspiracy? I think so.
Well, at least I'm actually involved with great movies.
Fair.
Legitimately good stuff.
Fair point.
So anyway, this is Tyler from End Credit Reviews.
And Steven from Steven Lawson Studios.
And we hope you enjoyed this episode of After the Credits on End Credit Reviews, even though the audio may have not turned out so well. And thank you for enduring this long if that's the case, and we hope to make a lot more in the future. Please like and subscribe.